Welcome back to Second Cup. It's me, your host, Tim Heller. My guest for today's episode is my friend and soon-to-be nemesis in the Get Mike UVOS Grand Finale voiceover competition, George Novick. George's bio was written by him, so I just want to read what he submitted as his bio. Again, these are not my words, but his. If bald baritones with tic disorders are not your cup of tea, today is a good day to switch windows back to that YouTube ASMR video of paint drying via wind generated by peacock feathers. George has been pretending to know stuff about voiceover, audio engineering, and session recording for something in the neighborhood of 20 years now, give or take 7 days. When not looking for which end of a microphone to talk into, George works in the durable medical equipment field, lives on the side of a mountain, tries to write a blog, keeps up with his kids only by virtue that youth and enthusiasm will never beat age and treachery, loves walks in the rain, Nintendo Switch, and the efflorescence that is the Pacific Northwest region. Well, that's a fucking bio if I ever read one. I have nothing else to add to that except for top off your beverage, get comfy, and snuggle up for this episode of Second Cup with my friend George Novick. George Nowick, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This has been long overdue. I probably said your name right. It's probably Novick. Did I say it
Novick,
wrong?
yeah.
There we go. Okay, great. Whew, all right. How are you this morning? And thank you for being up early on the West Coast.
Oh man, I'm doing great. I've actually been up since like 5 because I get the kids off to school and then I tinker around with social media algorithm feeding, and then usually I head off to the day job. But now I am here and I am super excited to get a chance to finally chat with you on Second Cup.
Yes, cheers, or rather my third cup for the day.
Oh, nice.
It's only 10:40 in Texas.
It's after 8
Your
o'clock
mug
somewhere.
is incredible, by the way.
Thank you. Yes, there we go. It was an impulse purchase that has served me very well, although it's a pain in the butt to try and clean.
Yeah, I bet.
It has a lot of cracks and
Java
crevasses. Yeah. Java fat. I'm taking that one to the bank.
Great, you can. Absolutely. So, George, for all the listeners, I'd love to get a quick intro, who you are, what you do, where you're at.
Oh, let's see. Well, I'm George Novick. I am in the Seattle area. Specifically, I am in Issaquah, which is about 25, 30 minutes east of Seattle, up on Tiger Mountain, which is nice because we have deer and bears, but the bears aren't always so nice because they like to tip over the garbage cans. I have been doing voice acting related things for something in the neighborhood of 20 years.
Wow.
And audio engineering in tandem with that. And that pretty much gets us to where we are today. I didn't know throughout all those years that there was like a community or an association or like all of these people that were involved in this and conventions and all of that stuff. So a lot of this is brand new to me in the last like year and a half. But outside of that, just like flying under the radar, doing corporate and medical narration, the occasional commercial, the occasional game. And that's pretty much it. And now here we are.
Here we are. I know, it's wild. I had a similar journey with the community side of VO, and I have not been doing it, nor do I have the expertise that you have. I haven't been doing it as long, but I didn't know that there was such a vibrant community and such a supportive community until like 2 years into my journey. And by that time, it was like COVID was like a month after I found all these groups. And I was like, oh, well, shit. But as long as you find it, that's the important thing, you know.
Right.
And it's you find there's lots of different personalities, lots of different schools of thoughts on lots of different things, and very few bad eggs. And you just kind of learn where you fit and what your vibe is. Everybody has their role, and mine is more definitely, I feel like, of a spectator, at least in the Facebook groups. And I'm just trying to put myself out there in different ways as well, which is something we both have done recently.
Yeah.
We are now, it is March 1st. In 22 days, we'll both be in Atlanta competing for the Get Mic'd UVOS Grand Finale. So congrats to you, sir.
Congrats to you, sir.
Thank you for winning the commercial and promo round, and I did the animation gaming round somehow.
Yeah.
The judges had a massive lapse in judgment and put us both through the grand finale here.
I'm assuming that my attempts to use the Force actually worked, because like that, and I screamed a Nike logo, and that must have been the tipper, because like, oh my, severe lapse in judgment, drunk off their butts. I don't know what.
Yeah. Well, and I think all the listeners can hear you certainly don't have the voice for voiceover.
No, I have the face for voiceover, but that's about as good as it gets.
Now, if listeners have not watched George's auditions for this competition, you can go to getmikes.com and find your way to the auditions and everything. But you can tell George has an incredible instrument, and it's just not fair.
What are you talking? Look
So
who's
I'm
talking.
getting ready to get absolutely spanked in the commercial and promo round of this competition. But it's
No.
like we said, everybody's got their place. So
Yeah. I I would strongly disagree given the fact that I have seen your work and all of your auditions, and you definitely have a place in all. You are probably well more well-rounded than I am for anything related to this. So either way, we're going to go up there and have fun and hopefully put on a good show, because apparently we're putting on a show and it's going to be live in front of like people and stuff.
yeah, and it's also I have no idea what it is, but we're gonna have George back shortly after Atlanta so that we can kind of recap and be like, what the
Yeah.
fuck was that? And oh my gosh, it was a party. So and yeah, I think we've talked offline about this, and it's not we're not worried about like the winning or the competition part. It's just gonna be fun to be there with everybody, and for me personally, I don't know about you, but being able to actually be with a lot of these friends that we've made
Yeah.
over the past 3 years since COVID, and meet them all for the first time in person.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just excited for that and to go learn new things and broaden our horizons.
Yes. Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence? Oh, showing our age. Showing our age.
So, George, I want to start with your day job and the family business that you had, because this is something that I have recently become more privy to through our conversations and exploring your LinkedIn and your intake form and all of that stuff. And can you tell us a little bit about that and what that is? Just because I think that as I have stepped into an entrepreneurial and role in my life and building different businesses and stuff like that, I'd love to hear about the Novick family business.
Wow. Okay. That's a fun can. Let's see. My mother started her medical equipment business 50 years ago now, 50, not 15. And it's kind of irreverently referred to as my older, less neglected sibling. But just growing up, I remember putting stickers on literature, filling ditch holes with gravel, and just kind of being around that business environment. And not having any concept as a child of exactly the terror that my mother was going through when she was trying to keep this business running. Because if you think back, we as a nation don't necessarily have a great track record with women in business in, say, the 1970s or 80s or 90s or
Or
aughts
ever.
or ever. There's a story that my mom likes to tell about the fact that she used to go to all the trade conventions, and it was very well known that my mother was referred to as the Ice Queen, because if you dare to put your hands on her, oh, you watch out. That was the mentality of the 70s and 80s. And I don't have any other words to describe the fact that, in spite of that, or maybe because of it, she continued to succeed and thrive and fall and get up and fall and get up and fall and get up, where a lot of her competitors went long by the wayside a long time ago. Which brings us to now. I started there full time. Wow. Almost 13 years ago. I was in between. I used to fit in between jobs every now and again, and I'd help out with
Mm-hmm.
stuff over there. But then, like 13 years ago, after a layoff, I went over to help out because they were having some computer troubles. And the more I stayed there, the more I realized that there was enough work for me to do to keep me busy. And next thing I know, I'm spending every day working with my mom, my dad, my uncle, my grandmother, and my grandfather, and a couple of other people. And I've been there ever since. I've taken over a lot more responsibilities over the course of the last 13 years versus just tinkering with computers and trying to make an old mainframe accounting system work in Windows consistently. And now I've taken over many of the responsibilities of my father after he passed away 7 years ago. Several of the things my mother was doing are now under my purview, and I'm finding myself more and more and more in the position of what I'm finding myself in as far as voiceover is concerned, which is marketing, sales, promotion, networking. Oh my gosh. it's all the same. It doesn't matter the size of the business. It doesn't matter how many people.
Yeah.
We have 13 people, but it doesn't matter because, well, except for the fact that those 12 other people really rely on us to be good at what we do because their livelihoods depend on it. So there's a little more pressure there versus the side business of voiceover where the only person really depending on that is me and maybe my kids. But yeah, there's definitely pressure, but it's exciting. And my goal is to just keep things going, make new connections, build new business relationships, and see how much further beyond 50 years we can get.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you answered a couple questions I had around like, uh, around like how is that experience translated into building your own
Yeah.
business, whether it's, and when people want to get started in voiceover, I say there's room for everybody. If you want it to be a side hustle or if you want it to be your main thing, there's room for everybody. But so the other question I had was, how has it been with, like, what's your experience been with running a family business and working with family? Because my brother and I just started accidentally at this digital marketing agency and creative consultancy.
Hmm.
And we've kind of like popped off for a second here, and everybody's like, oh, what is it like working with your brother? Like, is there competition or anything? And we don't have that as siblings, and we have luckily like really strong communication. We're both addicts and have been through all of the things associated with it. And so it's, um, but what has your experience been with managing personalities and family and all of that navigating?
Oh, wow. That's a question in there because most of the time, and I think like 97% of the time, everything runs smoothly because
Hmm.
we know what we're there to do. We know that people are relying on us. That the egos and the personalities tend to stay outside, and that's good. When my father was still with us, he and I knew how to push each other's buttons in every conceivable way, and oh my goodness, would we go at it from time to time. But yeah, that was probably the closest thing I would say to a tense family dynamic from time to time. Most of the time, like 97% of the time, it just ran really smoothly because we're all in lockstep with keeping things running and trying to do all of the promotional things that we're supposed to be doing. So it's been nice. Working with your mother sometimes has its moments, not gonna lie. We sometimes get on each other's nerves a little bit, and I think that's
Hmm.
understandable and expected to a certain extent. But there's also a tremendous amount of love and respect involved in that as well. So at the end of the day, we sometimes we just have bad days. Either she'll have a bad day, I'll have a bad day, we're both having a bad day, and we're gonna go away that day, and we know that it's all gonna be there waiting for us the next day as far as work is concerned, and then we just pick up where we left off, and things are generally a lot better the day after that. It's a small business, though. There is definitely stress that goes along with that, and especially where marketing and sales is concerned, you just got to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it and fit in all of the
Yeah.
actual day-to-day running things like monitoring the general ledger, making sure that accounts payable gets done, properly doing accounts receivable, balancing the check register, just all the little things that I
Hmm.
think to your point about people who want to get into voice acting as a side hustle, my advice to anybody who asks me about that is you can get into voice acting as a side hustle, but you have to put in full-time effort if you really want to get anything out of it.
Yeah, it is, because you are running a one person business. You are a solopreneur. And I feel like I've just graduated in the last 2 months. Now that it's March 1st, the last 2 months of this year, to like a true, like, building out a system of building a team like Julius and Tara, who are producing this show, and
Yeah.
our editing team with Sarang and Auberth with Arai Productions and all of that. And then bringing in my brother to build all the little, there's all these little, it feels like The Last of Us, the mycelia of the of the fungus. We're starting to grow, and it's scary to let go some of that control and to hand that over. But if it's people you trust and or family, in both of our instances, it makes it a little bit easier. But it is a lot. You are doing, when you first start out, it is wearing every single hat, and sometimes they fall off or they start hurting your neck, and That's when you got to bring on other people.
Well, when I started actually trying to do serious promotion of this, I actually got in touch with Ann Ganguza and Gabby
Mm.
Nistico.
Hmm.
And I put together a web page because when you're doing this, now you're a web designer. And so I put together all this stuff and I bought into a package with them because I felt like they had the expertise to kind of make sure that I'm going on the right path. And they took a look at my materials. They listened to what I had to offer. They saw my website and they said, uh, well, we really can't do anything to help you. We, we could refund you if you like. I'm like, it was bad. It was bad. They weren't bad.
Wait,
They were awesome.
like
I my
I
mat-
thought it was because your stuff was so good. I
no
was
no
on
no
a
no no
different
no no
page. I
no
was
no
like,
no
hell yeah, George.
no. My materials were very not in lockstep with what is required in this business. And I had no clue. I
Oh
had no
man.
concept. Even though I had done some homework and looked at other web pages, I thought I was right on and ready to go, and I was very seriously not. So I said, hold that thought. Give me 2 weeks. And I took furious notes of everything that they were recommending. And I came back 2 weeks later and they said, wow, that is the fastest turnaround we've ever seen. Because I was bent and determined to not suck at the business side of it. So
Yeah.
I felt pretty good after that, like I had actually accomplished things. And the website is as it was then. It's functional. It does the things that it's supposed to do. It's a good calling card. Now it has a blog attached to it for good or for ill. And it's humming along. But it has their advice was definitely critical to the business side of what we're doing.
Yeah. And so on that business side of things and on the marketing and networking side, the other voice actors that we've had on here, because there's been several, I like to hear like what is your approach to marketing? What is your approach to networking and all of that? Because I have mine. I've tried a lot of different things, and I've learned that I hate a lot of them, and
Oh,
and
the
have
rounds we could go on that one.
worked really hard to get to a point where I am only doing the stuff that I like to do for the most part.
Okay.
There's lots of things that will come up that I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do that part of this running a business thing, but I know that I have to, or I'll find a different way to make it fun for myself. But how do you approach everything? How did you? This will be two parts.
All right.
How did you first approach it, and what are you doing now that works better?
So, how I first approached it was with sheer and utter terror and just the whole concept and idea of the fact that I needed to be self-promotional, which was completely outside of every fiber of my being. I had no interest in like I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but like just being over the top self-promoting,
Mm-hmm.
borderline arrogant, or however you want to put it, just whatever gene is necessary to get my name and my voice and my image and branding, whatever term you want to use, out there to people who might be interested in utilizing that service. And ultimately, what really helped out was getting mixed up with my Clubhouse co-hosts, Rochelle Simpson and Megan Selke.
Which I want to
Because,
dive into in a minute here too.
oh, okay. Because of, I, I say this jokingly, but it's very serious that I am riding their coattails into some semblance of success. And what I mean by that is it's not necessarily just because I'm following in their wake, because they are two of the most astounding and amazing human beings I will ever know. But it's their influence and their tenacity and the example that they set, and the fact that we get together and we can bounce ideas around, and the more they talk about what they're doing, the more it inspires me, and the more it inspires me, the fewer misgivings I have about the things that are necessary to promote what it is that I am offering as a service. So that brings it into a position where now I feel far less awful about doing things like cold calls. I made my first cold call in 2022 because of Rochelle nagging me about it. She's like, "You're going to make one cold call." And I'm like, "Cold call." and I made the cold and I left a voice message, but like, in fact, every cold call I made in 2022 was a voice message, but it was good practice. And the first one was terrible. I didn't really know exactly what I was going to say, and so I got lucky. I was able to hit the number 3 and restart and furiously type something out in advance, but their influence made it possible for me to feel much more comfortable with cold calling, with emailing, with just face-to-face networking. Now that face-to-face networking is kind of a thing again versus what it's been for the last few
Yeah.
years. And their influence on me has made it possible for me to make some of the connections that I have made that otherwise wouldn't have even dreamed of.
Yeah. Well, and that's such a beautiful example of what we were talking about earlier of this aspect of community in any industry, and just being able to find that, like, your several circles of community. You have that the wide net of like level 3, we'll call it, and then you've got your level 2 people that are a little bit closer in there, and then you've got your like tight knit, like real support ride or die team, and that's such a beautiful. I don't know. I just love that story of that. Like Rochelle was like really pushing you to her episode just came out today of Second Cup.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
Because I got overwhelmed and didn't have the capacity to edit as fast as I'd like to when she came on a couple months ago. But thanks to Julius, Tara, Sarang, and Albert, and now we've got the whole everybody coming out.
Nice.
But it's yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to have those people that are going to push you to do different things. Whether it's like I've recently with this marketing thing, like having clients push me to do other things and saying, hey, like, we love working with you. Will you also produce video? Do you also do creative consulting? Can you like do remote production? Can you do all this stuff? And I'm just like, yeah, and you just figure it out and make it happen. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on too was just getting those reps in of doing something uncomfortable. This has been something that's come up a couple times for me recently with the company that we're helping out with a lot of messaging and stuff like that, and coaching other people on how to, saying that like on how to produce their own content and stuff like that. And whether it's producing your own content, making cold calls, I'm making pancakes even, or waffles, even better yet, is you just got to get those reps in. It's what Brene Brown calls the FFTs, fucking first times, or first fucking times, whatever it is.
Yes.
And it just is such a good reminder to just kind of laugh and know that when you step into a new situation, it's probably going to suck, and you're probably going to suck. And if you go in knowing that it's just the first step forward in something, you just got to get those reps in. You just got to practice and fail forward. It makes it so much less daunting.
Oh my gosh.
At least it has for me. But yeah, I love, have you continued with your cold calls?
I have to a certain extent. It kind of leveled off over the course of the last few months because other priorities have been falling into place. And so it's just a matter of the juggling and the balance act. My follow through is probably the least awesome thing that I am about. I am not good at that. And that's one of my goals for this year, is to take those, what was it? I forgot
FFTs.
FFTs in building a follow-up strategy, because any marketer is going to tell you that the average number of touches, even for those people who don't like to be touched, is going to be about 7. And the only way to get to 7 is to get to 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and all that. And that requires a follow-up strategy and a follow-through strategy. So yeah, that's one of my goals for this year. Praying for fewer miracles and more just tenacity and hitting the streets.
Yeah. Ooh, yes. Praying for fewer miracles and more opportunities that you create. I love that.
Yeah.
That's something that definitely when I came out of college, I was like, I had this mindset of I'm going to, things are going to line up for me. People have told me things are going to line up. I'm not going to have any issues. And I was young and I wanted all of that to work. And I wanted those opportunities to come to me, and some did, and most did not. And you have to go out and build it yourself. You have to, like, nobody's going to hand you the life that you want to have. You have to go make it for yourself.
How much of your life is built around, or how much of your career and life is built around the fact that you said yes to something that you knew nothing about and then figured it out later?
100% of it. 100%.
Yep.
And with voiceover, it was just saying yes to doing a class, because I had enough people say, like, you need to you need to go take a class and learn about this, and it ended up kind of, not saving my life, but it saved my brain and created the life that we have now with the back issues I had and all of that stuff that led to a huge pivot.
Yeah.
But yeah. So speaking of pivots, let's
Yeah.
talk about waffles.
Yes.
So for those of you just listening on audio, you're missing out on George's beautiful shirts, and there are waffle keychains all over his booth. So check it out on YouTube or Spotify to watch all the videos. But tell me about what are these waffles? How are they spawned? And who is involved in the making of them?
I mean, aside from the fact that waffles are the most generous breakfast food because they give you little pockets to hold things like butter and syrup and whipped cream and strawberries.
Waffles are the cargo shorts of breakfast.
Yes. I'm gonna have to pass that back on to Megan and Rochelle. The cargo shorts of breakfast.
They're gonna hate me so much.
That's amazing. No, so it goes back to the tail end of 21, shortly after Rochelle and I had connected, and I said, hey, you know what would be fun? If we put together a clubhouse room for voice actors who are either full-time or part-time, where they don't have to be on, where they can like let their hair down if they have any, or just be there and hang out and not feel any pressure to do anything performative. Because at the time, the vast majority of the clubhouse rooms that had anything to do with voice acting were usually because there was a producer or a casting director or somebody or an agent or someone of some form of influence, and everybody was getting into that room because they probably wanted to perform for this person in the hopes of getting booked or hired or signed. And there was always pressure, always pressure, always pressure. And so my vision for that at the time, loose vision, was partner up with somebody, start a room, make it fun, and zero pressure. And what ultimately ended up happening was we started in January of 22. We figured we're going to do this for January. It'll be fun. A couple of people will show up. We'll laugh a lot. And then that'll be the end of it. And I think it was within the first 2 episodes that we absorbed Megan because she's just amazing. She is the quickest, sharpest, funniest wit of any human being I have ever met. Hands down, no way. No one can top her on that. And what ended up happening is people kept coming back and we kept coming up with weird themes, and once a month we do a game day at the end of the month, and we just kept coming up with more themes. Is it close to tax time? Let's talk about taxes as business people. What are we doing? What can we do as a topic to share with each other all of the stuff that we're doing? Sometimes we do fun reads. Sometimes we did one week where everybody kept talking about the fact that they're not entirely sure how to describe their voices on their websites for their branding. Is it warm? Is it comforting? Is it neighborly? Is it aggressive? Is it authoritative? Whatever. So we set up a thing where people would talk for a minute, and then everybody in the chat would write down all of the descriptive words that they heard from an objective third-party perspective. And everybody loved it because now they had these adjectives to talk about themselves that they may not necessarily have been comfortable coming up with on their own. And so we just like doing stuff like that. We're having more guests now than we did last year. And that's been an interesting experience because we had Nick Redman recently talking about vocal health, because vocal health is at the crux of everything we're trying to do. We had Tom Antonellis do a short dialects workshop, which turned out to be a boatload of fun. We had Sam Liu on recently because, funny story, Rochelle is a networking ninja. There is no question about it. She saw him peek into our room at one point, and he's involved in a lot of the art with DC stuff, DC animations. He's won an award for that kind of thing. And so immediately after she saw him, she sent out a connection request, and they chatted for a while, and then she invited him onto the show, and he's like, yeah, sure, that'd be fun. And he turned out to be one of the most insightful guests we have ever seen because he was zero filter, and he told everything like it is at Warner Brothers. And some of the things I hope he doesn't get in trouble for saying, but his experience and his background and he does have experience working with voice actors in that role. So his perspective was very, very unique. And one of the things that we appreciated about the fact is that he doesn't do hiring. He's not the casting director. He's the guy who's going to work with the actors after the fact. So thankfully, our core group of people aren't the kind of people who are going to like stalk our guests if they feel like there's
Yeah.
a business opportunity out there.
Boom, LinkedIn connection. Boom, email.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's the term I keep hearing? The pitch slap. Yeah. I hear that a lot. But yeah,
Oh,
Rochelle
man,
is responsible
I
for
used to
most of
do
our
that
guests.
too. I
Oh,
used to do
really?
that. It was awful. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know any better. I was just like, the world shut down and I was like, boom, I took like a free 20-minute direct marketing course through Voice Actors of New York City
Mm-hmm.
and just set out and sent a bunch of really cringy emails. And some of it worked, right? And you build these genuine connections through that. But I learned, like, every time I sent it, I hated it. And I was like, this is stupid. Or I'd like misspell the company name or send it to the wrong person or
Oh,
whatever that
no.
is. And it's awful, but like, it happens and you move on and you learn from it. But
Oh, yeah,
yeah, that
totally.
pitch slap is,
Yep.
I've had people start to do that to me now too. I'll make a post about a project coming out and somebody says, oh, cool, who's the casting director, who's the studio? And it's like,
Really?
we don't have that relationship yet,
No.
and if we did, then you wouldn't post it on the post. You'd be like, hey, like, I saw this. Like, if you said that, or like, I had lunch with another friend who's visiting in town, and he asked me about that, and I was like, yeah, like, if you were to ask me that, it'd be fine. Like, we have that rapport of like, let's share the wealth. But if you
Yeah.
you got to put in the work to develop those relationships. But
Imagine it.
back to Rochelle, the
Yeah.
networking ninja.
The networking ninja. Most of our guests are the result of her just zero fear networking. And again, her example is why I'm in the position that I'm in now and doing some of the things that I'm doing. And I have less fear about everything that I am doing now just by virtue of being around her. And we've had a lot of fun too. Like we did our version of Madonna's Take a Bow as a fun side project where she sang, and we talked about it in December of 21, and she's like, yeah, let's do Take a Bow. And I'm like, okay, great. I've been dying to try to recreate a backing track from scratch, and that's a good one to work on. It took me months, but it was worth every moment because I really learned a lot about that track and deconstructing Babyface's creative process. So I learned a ton from it, and the song was a lot of fun. And then that led to a music video covering an Andrew Gold song. And now I'm in this weird niche where, you know how everybody talks about the fact that every voice actor has something that is unique to them and only them that allows them to maybe stand apart a little bit. I do these really bizarre barbershop quartet videos because I've been singing barbershop since like 2000. And when the
I
pandemic
didn't
hit,
know this.
what? Oh my gosh.
How I see your stuff like every day. I don't know how I haven't seen that.
Ooh. And it's funny because I'm releasing one today too, which
Are
is
they on your
probably going to get
website?
me kicked off of every platform. But it basically, when the lockdowns happened, and it turned out that singing was one of the fastest way to spread germs and disease, all the choruses and quartets just shut down for like 2
Okay.
years. And so I needed that fix because at the core of everything that is every fiber of my being, am a musician. And I needed those tight harmony fixes that make all the hair on my body stand up on end. So I just started singing with myself, and I decided, hey, wouldn't it be fun if I made a video out of it? So I like made a 4-corner video, and I dump them on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. I finally grew a pair and started posting them on LinkedIn, which was terrifying, and Facebook. Because on LinkedIn and Facebook, I am associated with a lot of very good singers, and I would call myself a middling average singer. So
Okay.
I had a lot of terror about exposing that side to people who are very, very skilled as singers. And
Yeah.
and and again, it's your FFT. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get. Up until today, I don't know when this is going to air, but by the time this airs, the video that I'm putting out today, in fact, you're going to be the first person who knows about it outside of Rochelle and my wife. I covered a Sam Smith song called Unholy.
Oh yeah.
I arranged a quartet barbershop style version of a chunk of it. And that is going to come out today.
Yes.
it,
Okay.
it's I had never heard of the song, and it was Rochelle's idea. She basically triple dog dared me to do it. And so I'm
Yeah.
looking through the lyrics and listening to the song. I go, Mama, God, oh my, these words. So the
That's what I
juxtaposition.
was thinking. This wholesome genre of music meeting this like down and dirty, sexy song. I'm here for it. I cannot wait. We might have to end this interview early so you can post it so I can.
Yeah. No, I still have to write all the text and figure out how to do proper hashtagging. And I am not a social media whiz by any stretch. So I'm still doing a little bit of homework on that. But it'll probably come out. Let's see. It's 9:16 Pacific right now, probably in the next couple of hours. So yeah, anybody who
Nice.
sees this, it's already going to be out there. And all 6 of you who enjoyed it, thank you. I appreciate you very much.
Oh, please. So that's awesome. I love what you guys are doing with your Clubhouse chats. I think that's such a beautiful way to give back to the community, and can both dual purpose is to give back to the community and build community. And it's,
Yes.
I know that there are a lot of people out there who, again, there's lots of strong personalities in the business, but I think it's so important to have a safe space for people who are at any point in their journey. But it sounds like with the workshops that you're doing on like how to describe your voice, it's really serving those people who are just like curious about getting into it, or are at like in the first like 1 to 2 years of their journey.
Yeah.
And to have a safe space to go ask those questions, and this, I don't know. I really think it's important that it's really important what you guys are doing, what y'all are doing.
We
And
finally
I
had to
think
write a
that's really
mission
special.
statement because we're approaching more guests to come on the show. Like we've got one that we're super excited about that's coming up soon. We have a game audio producer by the name of Alexander Brandon. Like nobody knows we've talked to him. He's an old friend of mine. And I thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun? And he agreed to do it. So he's coming up. Like not the typical guests that you would expect in the circle. We like to look outside of that. But we needed a mission statement because we're approaching these people. And we thought it was important for them to kind of know what we're all about, especially for people who may have services that they use or are promoting. We are very, very passionate about the fact that our clubhouse room is service for the sake of service, and completely and totally free of pitch slappery is what we wrote in the in the language of it, because we feel that any effort to compromise that makes the room less safe, I guess, for lack of a better description. Like there are things that I do that I will never talk about in that clubhouse room because I don't want people to think that I am there to promote a service. I absolutely do not want anyone to know about that. If they want to talk to me about something offline or whatever, or if they've got questions, I'm always happy to answer them. I answer so many technical questions. It's not even funny. And I love it because I feel like all these decades of audio experience are finally being of use to somebody. But yeah, we are very, very passionate about making certain that nobody feels sold to in our room, either by guests or by us or each other. And that I think that has come across to everybody who is there. And I think that has served us really, really well because it's important to us to be able to give back from a genuine place of actually giving back, as opposed to, I talk for a living sometimes, as opposed to using it as a harvesting mechanism, I guess is a really kind of crass way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, that sounds very sci-fi. Ooh, that was good.
Oh, thank you.
So the last question I had for you
Yeah.
is, you put on your intake form like navigating having a tic disorder growing up and in work, and I would love to hear you just kind of chew on some of that with me, and how that's what your experience has been, because you've been ticking a little bit, but it doesn't affect, like it's not distracting, at least to me. And I want to know what it's been like what it's like for you to experience that, and how you've navigated all of that, and whatever you're willing to share about it. I know on your form you said you're just like, nothing is off the table in all caps, let's party. And I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, anything. I'm an open book. Tic disorder, and of course, full disclosure, the more I talk about it, the more it's going to manifest itself. So just
Okay.
Fair warning, if I'm jerking my head around, it's not because of anything you said. And if I'm rolling my eyes, it's not at you. And if I curse, it's on purpose. So I have Tourette syndrome, and I got diagnosed with that when I was a sixth grader. And it was a few years before we had any idea why I was jerking around like a crazy person and making these weird noises. We just thought it was weird. And so we have finally had a name for it. But like, so what? Now we've got a name for this thing, but we don't know what to do about it. We don't know how to, there's no real treatment for it. It's a tic disorder, and it involves physical and vocal tics. So as a child, it was distracting. It was the kind of thing that got me thrown out of classes. It was the kind of thing that,
Mm,
oh, I hate saying this out loud. It was the kind of thing that got me beat up on a daily basis because I was different and I was kind of a
okay.
freak, and it definitely built character. What I will say is two things. One, I discovered that music was my only refuge from the tics as a child. I
Mm,
was taking piano lessons and eventually I picked up electric bass and violin and guitar. And being in a position to be playing music, especially piano, the tics would just vanish for the duration of
mm.
like a song. So like Moonlight Sonata is still one of my favorite songs to play because for the entire duration of that song, I'm tick free. There's nothing going on.
Wow.
It uses so much brain power to do music that there isn't anything left for the ticks to absorb onto. So, what it did though was I found out eventually that being funny and having a sense of humor and being self deprecating was a really good way to beat the other kids to the punchline. And if I could
Yeah.
make them laugh, then they probably wouldn't hurt me. So, that worked really, really well as far as life skills go.
I'm gonna cry. I'm like,
No, 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 no.
no, I'm not actually gonna cry, but I like, and it's not out of pity, but it's like, it's just like, it's sad that I can empathize. Not that I had I was just weird, like I just felt out of place. I felt other than, and a lot of that, like a lot of that I did to myself in terms of like, just like feeling that way and feeling, writing other people's scripts for them, which I had no business doing. But, yeah, but finding that humor and that self-deprecation
Yeah.
and all of that, beating them to the punch,
Mhm.
literally and figuratively,
Yep.
is yeah, I feel that.
As far as what that means for me now, obviously on-camera work is off the table because nobody needs that. Like even people who are cast as Tourette's people on TV generally don't have Tourette's, and they're doing an approximation of what they think is supposed to happen as opposed to what's actually supposed to happen. But that makes sense to me. It's not offensive in any way because in a television production environment, everything needs to be very carefully crafted. And somebody who's jerking around and getting off mic or getting away from the boom or whatever it happens to be is going to interrupt the production schedule. Now, if you're doing something on purpose for that, that's another matter entirely. Like documentaries or whatever, that's great. But if you're doing like an episodic program of some kind and you have a character with Tourette's, you've got to be able to have some kind of control over that. So like in interviews like this, for example, usually I concentrate very, very carefully on controlling it as much as possible. Of course, I'm
Mhm.
talking about it now. So like it's just off, it's getting off the rails and it'll be amazing by the time the camera goes off. But what I find is that singing is the same thing, acting is the same thing. I can control them when I'm narrating something, or I can control them when I'm singing a part for a video or something. And then it's in between the lines, or when I'm taking a breath that'll just jerk around like crazy, and then it's back to what I'm doing. So
Hmm.
it there's some degree of brain synapses. I don't have many of them, and so the ones that I need to act are going to absorb everything that's there, and so I won't be ticking as much. But in between, they're just off the rails because they've been suppressed for a period of time and they need to get out somehow.
Yeah. I mean, if people who are listening to this, are only listening to this, not watching it, I would be hard pressed to find anybody who could tell that you were ticking throughout any of this, because I think it's wildly impressive. And do you know who Lewis Capaldi is?
I know the
The singer.
name.
He's a British singer songwriter, and he's kind of been blowing up recently. But he also has Tourette's, and he ticks, and I mean he'll tick in concerts and all of that stuff. But you learn how to navigate those things that are in your way, or not even really in your way. I don't feel like that's appropriate to say, but that are just part of your day to day, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I
Billie
think
Eilish is an
it's all
example
part
of
of.
someone who came out as having Tourette's recently, and I thought that was fascinating because,
Really?
yeah, what I have discovered over the years of meeting with other Tourette's people, outside of the fact of if you meet with someone with Tourette's, chances are you're going to absorb their tics and like trade them off. It's like osmosis or Bluetooth. Um, like every time I meet someone with Tourette's and they have a tic that isn't mine, I will walk away with their tic, and it'll last for
Oh
about a week and a
no.
half. It's amazing. Um, t- People with tic disorders tend to lean creative, and
Hmm.
I thought I was just freakish. I was right, but also because of that, it has given me I hate to say this, but having what is categorized as a disability has actually made me a person who can have opportunities that maybe other people might not have. I have an
Mm,
aptitude to music. I hate admitting that in public, and you can cut that later if you want to. But I am drawn to music. I live and breathe it. And I think it's because of the fact that I have a tic disorder that kind of puts me in that brain area regularly where music makes sense to me. And it's like breathing air. And a
yeah.
lot of Tourette's people are very, very creative.
Yeah, I feel like it's and also more apt for athletics too. You know, like Tim Howard
Yeah.
is one of my favorite goalkeepers of all time, and when he played for Everton, and like he's been very vocal about having Tourette's and a tic disorder, and he fully embraced it, and so did the fans. His chant was whenever he made a save. Have you heard this
I
before?
haven't, no.
Of what it was? Oh my god! They say it's Tim Timony, Tim Timony, Tim Tim Taroo. We have Tim Howard, and he says, "Fuck you."
I love
And there'd always,
it.
isn't it insane? He has this, and then he just kind of like, it's like in the mode, and then they do that cheer, and he just gets a little like a little smirk on his face every
That
time.
is astounding. I love
Yeah,
that. Now,
that's a whole nother level of owning your full self, and I think that it's important that, I mean, the way that you've done it, and everybody hopefully can get to that point that you and Tim Howard have
oh my
gotten to.
gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, only 5% of Tourette's people have uncontrollable cursing. And it's interesting because there was an Irish guy who has Tourette's, and he would make YouTube videos, and cursing was one of the components of his Tourette's experience. But what I learned over the years is that the tics, vocal and otherwise, generally speaking, are things that are socially unacceptable. And the conclusion I finally drew from that was because I watched his videos. All of his curse words are local dialect. Some of them don't even make
Hmm.
sense to us, but they are all words that are offensive in his region. And so as I looked around, I would see like like what you were talking about with the goalkeeper. Those are words that are offensive in his language. For a Russian with Tourette's, they're going to be using Russian words for all of those things. But whatever it is, it's something that's socially unacceptable. Twitching and jerking is socially unacceptable. Those words are socially unacceptable. And it's almost like I don't want to say disorder because that's not the right word for it, but it's almost like the experience of Tourette's thrives on things that are different, wrong, outside of the norm.
Hmm.
I don't know how much of this is for anybody else, but I know in a lot of cases, if something hurts for me, um, a tic will develop that will exacerbate it. So, for example,
Hmm.
if I develop a headache, the head jerking will just get worse and worse and worse and worse until I can finally grab a bottle of Advil and just go for it. And then eventually the Advil will make the headache go away, and then the tics will subside a little bit.
Wow.
Um, I will say that Tourette's is responsible for getting a neck disc replacement because when you use your neck in ways that it's not designed to be used over and over and over and over and over and over and over again over the course of decades, things wear out. So I've already had one disc replaced. I might be looking at another one coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking forward to that because they go in through the front to replace the disc in the back. And it took
Yeah.
me 2 years to recover my vocal range after that. So
Oh my gosh, George.
I have some decisions to make. It's possible that they'll say, well, why don't we just do fusion? I don't know if you know anything about neck fusion or not, but
I do with lower back. So
okay, yeah.
I've had two lower back surgeries before my one that I had in 2021, where they went through my stomach
Mm-hmm.
and replaced L45, and they fused L5S1, and
Yeah.
it's the first time I've been pain free in 11 years.
Oh,
So
thank God.
uh, Yeah, so very familiar with that fusion and ADR there. So a different kind of ADR
Right.
than what we're usually used to in the VO world.
But that's why they go through the front, because it's softer tissue. The muscles in the
Yes.
back and the neck are so tight that the damage that they would do to get in there in the first place is
Yeah, and the way that the vertebrae are shaped with the interlocking and all of that. So
exactly.
it's hard.
Yeah, that's ongoing. So to be continued on that front.
Stay tuned, folks.
Yes.
Well, George, thank you for talking about everything that you've spoken about with such candor, and I just appreciate you, and I appreciate the friendship that we've developed. However brief it's been over the past 6 months, it's been lovely, and I can't wait to see you in person in Atlanta. And I've got 2 quick things that we need to check off our list before I cut you loose for the rest of the day.
Got it.
Where can people find you and your Clubhouse group and everything that you have going on?
Let's see. To find me, it's my website, probably. It's georgenovick.com. The W is pronounced like a V because I'm an Eastern European mutt. And then as far as Clubhouse is concerned, I post about it at least twice a week because it's Clubhouse, so the link changes constantly. We're under Rick Party's voiceover house, I think is the right word for it. For someone who's been using Clubhouse for well over a year, I know very little about the platform.
We'll include all the links. We'll include what links and info we can in the episode description to make sure that it's easy to find people. And what are your handles on social media where people can find
LinkedIn, it's my name, George Novick. Facebook, my name, George Novick. For Twitter, it's a long story that you don't want to go into, but on Twitter it's Nalrog. Instagram and TikTok are variations of the Nalrog name, and those are the places where you're probably going to find more of my silly quartet videos, because again, I had misgivings at one point.
Great, I love it. All right, so final thing is we got some quick fire questions for you. Just quick 1 to 2 word answers, whatever's top of mind. Try not to think as much as possible. What's a nickname that you had growing up?
Norg.
Who inspires you right now?
Rochelle and Megan.
What's a piece of content you can't get enough of? Can be a book, TV show, album, whatever.
Television show, Letterkenny.
Oh yeah, gotta love them. Last question is, you can only have pizza one last time. There are no dietary destructions afterwards if you're allergic to anything. Where from and what's on it?
Where from? New York. Probably like 3 Italian guys who run a small pizza joint, because you know it's going to be the best. On it is going to be cheese and red sauce and thin sliced garlic, pepperoni, pineapples, black olives, Italian sausage, and if I'm feeling really saucy, it'll be mandarin oranges.
Mandarin oranges. That is a first, but I am open.
There was a pizza place out here that used to do a variation on Hawaiian. So you'd get pineapple and Canadian bacon. They call it ham up north of the border, which is weird because I don't know what they call ham. But they also added breakfast bacon, and mandarin oranges. And
okay,
it was beautiful.
I'm gonna have to seek this out. I'm gonna seek this out and do some reconnaissance work.
Absolutely,
maybe find a slice in Atlanta for us to experience together.
If we have to get a jar of our own mandarin oranges, we're doing this.
We'll be those guys.
Yeah,
see those fucking weirdos with the mandarin oranges.
Are we allowed to bring our own food in here? Come on.
George Novick, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm glad we finally made this work, and I'm excited to see you in Atlanta and to have you back on for a recap of the whirlwind of those 72 hours together.
It's going to be amazing. I'm so looking forward to meeting you in person and getting to share a stage with your greatness, and it's going to be such a blast.
It is. It's going to be a blast. George, I will talk to you soon.
Definitely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Second Cup with my friend and nemesis, George Novick. To keep track of everything that George has going on, he's got a lot going on that you'll want to keep track of. You can find him in a couple of different places. You can follow him on LinkedIn at George Novick. You can go to his website, georgenovick.com, or follow him on Instagram at NalrogFTW, NalrogFTW. As always, a huge shout out to my Second Cup team and family, Julia Shepard Morgan, Tara Seuss, Sarang Sharma, and Auberth Percy. As I mentioned in the episode, George will be back on Second Cup after the VOA conference, so now is a better time than ever to make sure that you like, subscribe, share, follow, all that good stuff to make sure that you stay on top of watching these episodes of Second Cup. Until next time, I'm Tim Heller, signing off. Bye.